I'm Chris, and today we're going to make a handgun. Let's do this real quick. One of the first things you want to do, especially if you're working with a real firearm, is definitely do a safety check. And if you're working with a BB gun, a paintball gun, pellet gun, whatever it is, if it shoots a projectile, you still want to do a safety check. And that's as easy as keeping your finger off the trigger, pulling back the slide, looking down the barrel, making sure there's no round chambered, ejecting your magazine, making sure there's no rounds in the magazine, and then go ahead, double check, use a chamber flag if you want. Otherwise, you're set and ready to go, and you can start tracing this out. Now, there's really no secret here. You just want to start tracing this out. And you really want to pay attention to the lines, pay attention to the dimensions, and you really want to try to get it as close as possible as you can. And we can make this rough sketch just a little bit better. One thing you may want to do, which I like to do, go ahead and do another safety check. And then we're just going to go ahead and remove the slide. And this is really going to give me the exact dimension that I need. Now, you could go ahead and measure it and all that, but I find it easier just to do it this way real quick. Considering the slide is going to be made out of a separate piece of wood, and the lower half, the pistol grip and everything, is going to be made out of another piece of wood. It's a little bit easier just to do it like this, and then go ahead and put everything back together, and you're good to go. That's pretty much it, and then we can cut this out, and then go ahead and trace it right on our piece of wood. Now I need to be able to cut my 2x4 down in such a way that it's a little bit thinner to use, because obviously if I use the 2x4 like this, it's going to be a really thick grip, and for some people that might be okay, but for kids it's going to be a little bit too big for them. So trimming it down really works well, and I find even trimming it down nice and thin, it's even more comfortable for myself when I'm playing with my son and my daughter and such. So we're going to go ahead and do that now.
You really want to be careful when cutting a 2x4 in this manner, with the blade all the way up and exposed. It really exposes you to the dangers of this blade if you should happen to slip. I made this little jig really to hold the 2x4 in place, keep it nice and steady so I get a straight cut, but then also to keep my arms on the other side of the fence, so if I did slip, my arms wouldn't be going into the blade. My best suggestion would be to raise the blade up a little bit, make a pass, and keep repeating that until you get the blade up halfway. And then flip the board over, repeat the process, flip the board completely over, repeat the process again on the other side.
Now that we have the 2x4 trimmed down the size, we're going to take our stencil and pretty much just rough sketch it out. I like to utilize it as much of the 2x4 as I can, so sometimes it's easier just to make more than one gun. And who doesn't want two guns anyways? Once we have everything pretty much mapped out where we want to put everything and the hole for the trigger, I'm not going to make a trigger, I'm just making a hole. It's still just as fun, and then I'm going to round most of these corners out. Once we have that all done, we can go ahead and cut that either on a bandsaw, on a jigsaw, you could use a handsaw, whatever you have available to do. One thing I'm going to do first, since I have it like this, I should have did it before I started cutting, was really just drill out the holes. Now I absolutely love using these Forstner bits. They make a nice clean cut, they're real easy to use. If you haven't invested in them, I just bought a cheap pair and knock on wood, they've been working good for me.
As always, anytime you're working with power equipment, please work safe and in a responsible manner.
Now that we got our piece kind of looking like Swiss cheese, you can go ahead and finish cutting it out. After you got your holes drilled, the next thing to do is go ahead and cut it out as close to perfect as you can, and then if you miss anything, you could always sand right up to the edge. Now I like to take this on the sander and really just get any of the rough stuff nice and smooth, round over a little bit of the edges before I go ahead and route this. And now it's time to take this thing to the router. You want to make a couple decisions here on how much of a roundover bit you want to use. You may not want something that's super round at the top. You may want it that way. It's all a personal preference on what you want to do. So let's see what we can get accomplished here.
The router can be a really handy tool in your workshop, but if you find that it's just not cutting the way it should, your bit might be dull. Otherwise, try lowering your bit and taking a small pass first, and then raising it up and taking another pass, instead of trying to take a huge pass and chunk out of the wood.
Next, I want to lower my router just a little bit, just so I can get inside here, so I don't have such a big roundover on it. And it all depends on your personal preference. I can always take more off later, but I can't add more material to it.
If you don't feel comfortable doing something when working with your router, don't do it. Be safe.
We'll go ahead and take it back to the sander, smooth everything up, and then work on the slide.
This may not be the safest or even the most efficient way to use my belt sander, but it's the only sander I have, so I'm taking my time and I'm being careful, and making sure I'm safe.
So we're going to go ahead and route this top edge, and this is going to be the top of our gun, the top of the slide. We're just going to route that just a little bit of a roundover, not so much as we made for the handle, for the grip. Then I'm just going to go ahead and run this right through my table saw. Now really all you have to do is just glue this on top. Just going to get the best fit I can, trim it up with the table saw so the ends are nice and smooth. Alternatively, if you wanted to, you could drill a hole inside here to act as a barrel. It's really up to you. It works either way. Now if you end up with excess glue like this, just go ahead and get some sawdust and just kind of rub it, and the glue is going to kind of adhere to the sawdust and roll up and get right out of there. The more you get off now when it's a little wet, the easier it is going to be sanding it later, and the less time it's going to take later. So this is a nice fast little trick to go ahead and get the excess out of there. Now that the glue is dry, you can pretty much go ahead and give this a final sanding. Then once you're done sanding, you end up with a pretty nice little toy. Definitely feels comfortable in the hand. There's really no sharp edges. That way if you're throwing it in a pocket or something like that, it's not going to grab on anything. You know, if your kid goes ahead and whacks themselves with it, there's really no hard edge, sharp edge for them to get cut on and such. And then if you really want, you can go ahead and throw some boiled linseed oil on it. Really seal this gun up. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you found this video helpful in making this gun, please leave a comment below. Thank you guys so much.